Morning, everyone. If I could just call us all to order and get us underway today. So, good morning. I see we've got, I don't know, looks like about 70, 80 people or so in the room, and I understand we've got about 50 people online. So, welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for this, for a day of discussion about the future of the National Space Partnership. For the last 3 and a bit months, I've had the pleasure of being the chair of an interim steering group for a pilot phase of the National Space Partnership. So we're going to be hearing a little bit today about some of the outputs of that work. But I think the main point of the discussion is to think to the future and what do we need from a partnership to help us deliver on the opportunities of space. This comes on the back of quite a sequence of work over many years where government, academia, industry have worked together. First of all, coming together for the innovation and growth team in the sort of 2008 timeframe. This led to the publishing of the innovation and growth strategy in 2010, which led to the creation of the Space Agency and my organisation, the Catapult, and also led to the concept of UK launch being a UK priority. And that was a big decision at the time, but in a few months' time, we'll see that's finally coming to fruition. Each of these stages of that partnership has been pioneering in its own right. And now, as we look forward, we're looking for the National Space Partnership. What is it that we need from all our different communities in order to rise to that challenge and lead the next phase of transformation of our sector? I think the thing that's guided us all the way through, back from those early days of the innovation and growth strategy, was the sense of change. In those days, we recognised that the world was changing. And perhaps at a time when the world itself didn't see that need for change. We could see that there was a need for a new relationship with the space industry, and that new things were going to be required from space for the change that the world was seeing. And now that we can see what the world that we're living in now, the world has caught up. Everywhere we look, we see industries in transformation, whether it's look at the energy industry decarbonising, whether it's the food and retail, looking to clean up their supply chains, more robustness, more resilience, whether it's finance, looking for better models of environmental and sustainability governance, or whether it's transportation, automotive, aerospace, again, looking to take the carbon out of their modes of operation, and also looking for new systems of operation, more autonomous and more less involvement of the human intervention. So there's a massive amount of change going on in all sorts of industry at the moment, and so we see demand coming to space from all sorts of different directions for new commercial products and services to help all these industries in the change that they're trying to undertake. And at the same time, we have opportunities for new international collaborations. There's a new drive to see how we can take humans to the moon, go beyond to Mars. So there's fantastic opportunities to develop new technologies and services in those new realms. So these are some of the challenges that we've got ahead of us. How do we balance the need to industrialize, increase the pace of industrialization of the space technology so we can respond to these new commercial opportunities and commercialize new technologies as it comes through? And also, how do we respond to these opportunities from new international collaboration so that the UK can play its role on the international stage? And that's really, this is what the NSP is all about, and this is what we're here to talk about today. What new roles do we need for government, for industry and academia as we seek to rise to these new challenges? And there are some tough decisions ahead, but there are no sacred cows. And we're not going to be able to answer all these decisions today, but what's important is we put the structures and governance in place so that we can answer those questions as and when they arise in the months and years ahead. So that's all I want to say by way of introduction, but I think it's going to be, this is going to be one of those days we look back to in the future as one of those moments where things started to change and we started to operate differently as a sector. So I will hand over now to our first speaker of the day, who is Cathy Bass from Department BEIS, and she's going to be telling us a little bit about the position that they're taking and where they are in delivery of the National Space Strategy. So, Cathy, over to you.
Morning, everybody. Nice to see some faces that I recognise in the audience and lots of new faces as well. I'm Cathy Bass. I'm the new Deputy Director for Space Strategy Implementation and also UK Space Agency Sponsorship in BEIS. Some of you will know me from my time in the UK Space Agency working on satellite application strategy. Others of you might even know me from my days back in DEFRA working on Earth observations in Copernicus, and one or two of you know me even longer than that, so I'm not new to space, and I'm really happy to be back here again. And as Stuart said, this is a pretty exciting year for space, and last year in particular saw some really big changes with the BEIS Space Directorate being set up, and then the publication of the very first dual civil military national space strategy in September. And I think this event is really important to explore how we can achieve that vision together, not just as working within government ourselves. And I think the real value of having our new Space Directorate in BEIS is that we have a new home that's really close to government ministers. And in particular, our dedicated science minister, Minister Freeman, is fully engaged on space. Many of you will have met him, will have seen him talking, and he really wants us to focus on getting the NSS actually delivered. He's really positive about our engagement with MOD and his relationship with ministers at MOD, and really committed to looking at future opportunities, particularly like dual use potential. Minister Freeman sees engaging with industry and academia as absolutely key to success of the NSS. And I think we all agree with that, and I hope we can focus on that a little bit today. So all of that means that my new team are very busy. We've been establishing the new structures in BEIS. We've been settling down with the UK Space Agency in terms of exactly which bits of policy and work land in each organisation. And actually just getting the new ways of working established. And we've got some really positive relationships going there now, and I'm really pleased with the way that we've been able to work together, and a lot of joint working going on between the two organisations. And a really good example of that is in finalising the spending review settlement that was announced last month. And we've been working with the Space Agency to develop their £1.75 billion programme over the next 3 years that will be a key pillar to delivering the national space strategy. So we want to make sure that the best use of that money to deliver these 10 priorities that are rather helpfully laid out next to me here. Another thing that we've been working on in BEIS is establishing the new National Space Board. That's jointly chaired by directors in BEIS and MOD, and it's for the first time really creating a single group within government where we can focus on space strategy. That's working well, it's been meeting regularly, and it oversees and provides assurance for the delivery of the whole NSS, both over the short and the long term, and it's really enabled us to have some really quality discussions and make decisions about joint working going forward. And the approach that we've demonstrated with the National Space Board actually filters down into our everyday life working in BEIS, and in particular the BEIS and MOD Strategy Implementation Team, which is a joint team that oversees the working groups to deliver the 10-point plan. And examples of things that we're doing there include delivering the commitments to ensure that the space environment is kept sustainable and safe as this sector. But you'll also hear from Jules next, who's going to talk to you about how the defence space strategy is key to delivering the NSS as well. And just a personal reflection from me on my previous time in space. My first couple of weeks in the job here in January, multiple people from across Whitehall came to me and said, we really want to support what you're doing, we really want to help you, we want to make sure we're working with you and delivering joint priorities. And that's a really big shift. And I know what I've just talked about sounds really processy, and it is processy because we're government and we love a bit of process. However, what it does deliver is really coherent thinking, all working in the same direction, and also an environment where we can make decisions and move forward. So that's what we've been doing in government. But of course, that's just part of it. That brings me really nicely on to the importance of partnership with industry and academia, the very purpose behind the NSP pilot and the event that we've got going on today. And I know many of you have arrived here today after a trip to Colorado, and I really appreciate those people who've managed to travel and come back. But that kind of engagement obviously is really important that we do in a joined up way. I'd just like to take a moment here to recognise and thank the long-term efforts of the Space Growth Partnership and to Graham Peters for bringing people together, and for the important and valued work that they've done to try and provide that unified voice across the sector. But also to thank the National Space Partnership pilot team as well, who've continued some of that great work. In terms of our position, I've talked a lot about the change that we've been doing in government. And I think we're at the point now where we need to consider the best way of how we can work with that engagement going forward and give the Minister what he needs in terms of a direct voice from industry, as well as influencing how we work and what we do. The Minister's really keen to engage, as I've said. He wants to hear directly on a number of topics, and he's actually already started having roundtables around the subject of responsible space and regulation, and there'll be more to come in that area as well. And that's why we want to hear from you today, really, your thoughts on the National Space Partnership. There's some really great work done through the NSP, and as we'll see today through the presentations. And I'm really hoping that we can have some really substantial conversations today about how we move forward and to learn from these pilots, from the work that's gone before, and to get feedback. So just to conclude, the NSS did set out a really big vision, but this year is all about how we build and grow that together and create the system for the future that we want. And what we want, well, what we need really in government is for industry and academia to be able to engage and to contribute to the policy development in a really meaningful way. We need your expertise to help us develop policy that's actually going to really work and going forward. It's a critical piece of the puzzle that we really want to focus on now. And I'm going to be here all day, really keen to meet as many of you as I can and to hear your views as well. Thank you. Shall I hand over to Jules, or do you want to come back and...
Super. Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. I think there's a lot of folks in the audience that I already know. Wonderful to see Nick and Joanna and Elizabeth, Lizzie and Penny at the back. It's been almost a whole working day since I last saw you on the other side of the Atlantic, over at the Space Symposium. Brilliant to be here. So thanks for the opportunity here. You wouldn't be surprised to hear that what I will mention in my 10 minutes is probably going to duplicate or overlap a lot with Kathy, and that's a good thing. That is a good thing. For those who don't know me, Air Commodore Jules Ball, I am the longest serving uniformed member of the MOD Space Directorate, and that was formed about 2.5 years ago, absolutely to cohere Defence's ambition, where across Defence we were somewhat disparate, we weren't aligned either internally or externally across government, and it's been, and I'm bound to say this, aren't I, a pretty successful 2 years. We've got a Space Command, we've got a Space Directorate, we've got a national strategy, we've got a defence strategy, we've got an integrated review success, we've got spending review money to the tune of £1.5 billion of new resource. I would observe that in my 3 decades in the military, although most of that has been Air Force or joint, and I've only done 2.5 years in and around the space domain, I really would say it's difficult for me to find a sector with such palpable ambition and such tight links across government. So I'm not undermining what Kath is saying. What I'm saying is we start from a position that's not broken. The fact that we've got academia, the fact that we've got government, the fact that we've got industry all sitting here right now, and this is not the first time this has happened, it happens all the time. I never saw that kind of integration when I was in my previous domain. For 1.5 years, I would come to numerous chats and I'd flap pieces of paper around to say, we're going to release a strategy. And now we have props. We have real props. A defence strategy, which you would expect me to focus on, but absolutely nested in the national space strategy that Kathy and team have done so much work to evolve over the last 18 months. Fundamentally, the defence strategy, born out of the integrated review of circa a year ago, aiming to make the UK a meaningful player in space. Now, you will all have a view of what a meaningful player in space means, dependent on which particular optic you want to look at and where you want to approach it. But the bottom line is sustaining advantage through S&T, shaping the open international order, strengthening security and defence at home and abroad, building resilience. These are all things that fundamentally underpin everything. Underpin everything that we would seek to get after in both the national and the defence space strategy. The DSS is also wholly coherent with the defence and security industrial strategy. It's talking about a mixture of national capabilities and burden-sharing partnerships, embracing the growing UK space innovation environment. It's looking to exploit faster traditional procurement methods. And you've seen already last week we announced Minerva 1A on contract, 6 months, less than 6 months. I was senior responsible officer for that. It took less than 6 months from getting the financial approval to being on contract. That's not typical government process. We are trying to put our money where our mouth is. And perhaps most importantly, the DSS is intrinsically linked to the NSS. I know that you will read the National Space Strategy and you'll see one of 5 national goals focused on protect and defend, and DSS is very much a reflection of how we get after that. But if you unpick that one step further and look at the 10-point plan in the National Space Strategy, defence has got a part to play in almost every one of those 10 points. Space and sustainability, unleashing innovation, science and exploration, world-class clusters, improve public services, upskill and inspire, modernise, transform, and of course the DSP delivery in and of itself. Defence has a part to play in every aspect of this. So my message is, I don't want you to think that these are 2 separate aim points, because they're not. We discussed the vision to be a meaningful actor, whatever that might mean. Cross-cutting principles sit at the baseline of all of this. Broadening and deepening cooperation, driving innovation, maximising tech opportunities, and this through a model of own and collaborate and access. And we are already doing work with the team in BEIS and with the Space Agency and with Space Command to look at where those dual-purpose opportunities lie. You'll know the priorities that we're looking at: resilient and secure communications, enhanced space domain awareness, command and control systems, and innovative game-changing Earth observation, we would say in defence ISR, Earth observation capabilities. These are all areas that we can get to together as a triumvirate: industry, government, academia. Cathy's already spoken about Minister Freeman and Minister Quinn. They meet every month to discuss progress on this. The National Space Board, Cathy touched on, that's not just a BEIS and an MOD, it's DFT, it's FCDO, it's DCMS, it's DIT. The point is, and forgive the lengthy list of acronyms, multiple government departments to get after this. Perhaps slightly more tactically, we have a quad. That quad is Paul Bate and Rebecca Evenden. That quad is AVM Goddard at Space Command and AVM Harv in the Space Directorate. They get together every month to work out where are the opportunities. 2 directorates, Cathy and my peer Natalie on the policy strategy side, they talk every single week. And we've already set in train areas that we want to try and purposefully get after to sit there and say these are dual purpose opportunities. Earth observation, developing a national space operations centre, skills and education. These are all opportunities that we might wish to pursue, but we need this audience to help us engage. And I would say, don't kid yourself, it's not easy, because everything in defence that we do is facing across the Atlantic into our Five Eyes partners. Everything that BEIS does tends to look across to Europe because, and the ESA relationships. And we need to work out how we evolve and blend and get the best out of both of those communities. As I started, I was at the Space Symposium last week, and much as I see today on a micro scale, I can't get around the extraordinary blend of academia, industry, and government. And it was a brilliant, brilliant week. And the Union Jack looked resplendent in the middle of that hall. It really was an area where people were coming to us to talk to the United Kingdom about what we wanted to do in the space sector. So I'll finish by just touching on the National Space Partnership and my lens of this. As I said, I've been the defence representative on the SGP for the last 2 years. I read through or reread the National Space Partnership overview. I think perhaps Ruth or Stuart authored, and I would suggest that the premise is spot on. Specifically needing to capitalise, build trust and confidence with government, industry and academia. Create a unified approach, identify emerging opportunities, map capabilities across the UK space sector and do that independent of some of those stakeholders that are closer. What I would suggest is, as we go through today, we just need to make sure that some of the ambition for the NSP is coherent and complementary with that governance structure that Cathy and I have spoken about, this National Space Board, that we've already put in train on our side of the fence, if that makes sense. I think we owe it to you to make sure that we communicate so that you know exactly what's going on within government to try to cohere and get after that ambition, so that that can be complemented by the NSP or similar looking forwards. A few questions, and I'm going to offer a few questions and then I'm going to get off the stage, and I'm also not going to be around this afternoon, I am afraid, because I've got some non-discretionary obligations, but I specifically reflected on the NSP aspiration to help the UK channel its efforts where greatest impact will be felt. So my question would be, how do we propose to prioritise and identify where the low-hanging fruit is? Because we want the quick wins to prove that we can capitalise and develop that further. It states the UK must seek out ways to adapt to retain its leadership position. What does this mean through a national and a defence space lens? What is our leadership position? Where are our strengths and weaknesses that we can get after? Insight on where the strategy is delivering, as well as identifying gaps in progress. So I'd quite like to understand what the benefit is of doing this through an independent body rather than the recently created governance. None of these are trick questions. These are genuine questions that I think would be worth exploring and certainly would help me. So to finish where I started, the bottom line is I think you, collectively have achieved an incredible amount after the last 24 months. If you think about it, space is firmly on the government agenda, and that's in light of a conflict in Europe, immigration challenges, CV19 for the last 2 years, etc. The Space Landscape Review has come and gone and delivered a forward-looking governance across Whitehall, delivered policy and strategy. We've delivered an NSS, we've delivered a DSS, we've got a Space Command established, we've got resource identified. So the point is we've come a long way. There is a lot to do as we collectively seek to implement these ambitious strategies. But I really do look forward to hearing the discussion later today from the audience as we plot our trajectory to become a meaningful space player. Thank you. Doesn't deserve applause.
Thanks, Jules. Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Nick Shave. I'm chair of UKspace, and I'm going to give an industry view of the National Space Partnership and some comments back. Just reflecting back on the Space Symposium as well, my voice is a little bit croaky. I was accused last week of spending too much time in a karaoke sort of bar, but I didn't find a karaoke bar in Colorado, so that was AVM Harv who said that, by the way. So anyway, I'm sorry about that, and hopefully you'll be able to hear me okay. So UKspace is the trade body of the space sector. We represent 170 member companies across all different aspects of the industry, large primes, satellite operators through to SMEs, lots of different types of organisations, lots of innovative companies coming through. We work very closely with ADS, a big trade body, obviously, in the aerospace and defence sector, and Tech UK. So we're closely integrated. We've had a debate in UKspace about the NSP, and what I'd like to explain today is in summary, 4 main points from that debate, and really try and bring that to life a little bit with some examples. So we feel that a central independent body with some dedicated resources is essential. And we believe that body would be possible to successfully help drive momentum to achieve the goals in the National Space Strategy as we see here. We do think that NSP does need to be fully aligned with the UK Space Agency as a delivery body on the civil side, and UK Space Command as the more defence-focused delivery agency. We need that clarity of responsibility so there's no duplication. We really need, as the Minister has challenged us as a sector, to create that coherent voice across all different areas and to go back to him and others in government at senior levels with what we want and how we can achieve the ambition in the space strategy. So that's number one, a central body is essential. Number two, the NSP must be inclusive. We need very clear governance structures that ensure inclusivity of all 3 partners from the National Space Board all the way down to, if you like, the working level across those 3 areas. And the NSP needs to go out and really positively engage to ensure that inclusivity and to demonstrate transparency to everyone. And I think it's only if we can do that that we'll be really successful. And we must include SMEs, I've mentioned them already, really important in the sector, and all nations of our great country and all regions involved as well. And it's really great to see some representatives here today. And I think that's something that the SGP did try to do, but I think we've got a really good chance now with the NSP of making that really work well, strongly. So the devolved administrations are really important as well as the regional clusters, obviously. So that's number 2. Number 3, and I think Jules has mentioned this a little bit in his comments, the NSP needs to be additive. We shouldn't duplicate or replace current tried and tested representative bodies that we have, and we should draw on expertise that's already there in the sector. Good examples, UKspace work closely with some parts of government at the moment on the regulatory advisory group to provide significant experience in that area. We have other bodies like this that we work closely with, like the Satellite Finance Network, really important in terms of bringing through SMEs. So that's really important that we make sure we pull through that expertise. And I think there's some really good work that was done in the SGP. For example, some of the innovative procurement work that was been going on recently, that's really important, again, that we build on. So in summary, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, and we want to draw on expertise in the sector that's there already and deploy the NSP resources, that probably won't be too many, really carefully so that they are doing that 3-way, pulling together the coherent voice. And the final point, point 4, is about building on best practice, but also recognising the uniqueness, if you like, of the space sector. So we need to build on successful examples from other sectors. I think ADS, our partner body in particular, have done done some really great things with the Aerospace Growth Partnership and the Defence Growth Partnership. And out of the AGP, the ATI has grown, the Aerospace Technology Institute, all great bodies and successful things have come out of those. But I think space is a bit different. And one of the things that I see space as different, particularly in the academic world, is we go out into space to do science for science's sake, particularly through ESA. And maybe some of those other bodies don't always do that. Science is providing the support into the commercialization piece. Interesting debate we could have on that area. So I think really reflecting the different nature of the space sector there on the NSP is what we need to do, and really reflect the diversity that we have as a sector. So look forward to the rest of the debate today, and hopefully you'll meet many other people, the people that I haven't met before later on. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name's James Endicott, and I work for the Space Academic Network. So I'm going to give you a bit of an introduction to what the Space Academic Network is, in case you're not familiar with it, and then talk about our views on National Space Strategy and National Space Partnership. So at its core, academia in the UK, we cover 4 different areas, so space science and exploration, Earth observation, engineering and technology, and data analysis. And the structure of SPAN, as such, we have a board to kind of convene the interests of the different parties of academic research across the UK. So you can see that the 4 main areas are represented by working groups. We have some other groups being formed or considered, and we have a strong affiliation to the UK Space, Life and Biomedical Sciences Association. At this point, I should say that the Space Academic Network has been chaired by Andrew Holland at the Open University for the last 6 years or so, and we're at a transition point in that the leadership of SPAN is going on to a new organisation, or a new host university. So Mark Sims at the University of Leicester will be the chair, with Kate Robson-Brown from University of Bristol being a co-chair, and Kate is here today. We have a formal handover in May at the next board meeting. In terms of our representation or membership, so members of SPAN cover some 43 universities across the UK, over 200 participating scientists and engineers. And also within SPAN, we have representation from national centres, convened by the National Centre of Earth Observation, and organisations such as the Met Office, and research labs such as Rail Space and UKATC. And one of our main sort of things has been about science superpower status. So how can we be a science superpower in space? And over the last few years, we've been developing a number of ideas about how we could reinforce our position in the UK as a science superpower in space. And these are our proposals for a small satellite science program that would benefit both research but also industry supplying into that program, technology hubs for commercialization of research and enhanced collaboration between industry and academia, a fund for science bilaterals to extend our breadth of international partnerships. We've also highlighted the need for SPAN fellows, and these have fortunately been funded through the National Space Partnership, so we're very grateful for that, to kind of pilot that activity. I'll talk more about their work later today. And the final thing is doctoral training for developing the skills that are needed in various areas of the space sector. We're talking about sort of the high-end skills that you need in small numbers, but great sort of breadth to cover our needs of our sector. So on to National Space Strategy. There are 5 goals in National Space Strategy, and from my perspective for academia, there's close alignment between those goals and what we can bring to the sector. So in terms of growing and levelling up the economy, you have universities and labs distributed across the UK already, and those can be catalysts for innovation and growth. In terms of promoting the values of global Britain, universities have global footprints. You know, many of the universities have campuses in other countries. They recruit students from around the world. They're integral to global Britain. And also our centres of excellence, essentially, in academic research, both in national labs and the universities, are preferred partners. They're sought out by international partners to work with them. And often, you know, we don't necessarily have the means to do that. Sometimes we do, and great things happen. The third goal on leading pioneering scientific discovery and inspiring the nation. Honestly, this was the one that jumped out first from my perspective. Of course, it's got science in the title, but you know, we are leading scientific discovery with international partners, and this can lead to collaborative and international endeavours. Through ESA, through bilateral programs and strong national activity would all help enhance in this area. In terms of the 4th goal, so protecting and defending our national interests, we see a strong role for academic research to feed in and support this and underpin it. we use space to deliver for the UK citizens of the world. Now, I refreshed my sort of familiarity with National Space Strategy last week, and the paragraph on this section is just immense. You know, the first line alone is like, we will use space to tackle global challenges, including climate change and biodiversity loss. That in itself is huge. And then there are a whole load of other things that follow it as well. So great ambition, but it requires a great effort to support it. Just going on quickly, so on the 10-point plan, it's recognized in the publication that there's a science icon against 8 of the 10 points. That's very positive from our point of view. So we see strong alignment across the 10-point plan and where academia and scientific research can contribute. And then finally, sort of in terms of this figure to sort of encapsulate the National Space Strategy, I see, and I hope I've not got a biased lens, but I see a role for innovative technology hubs and clusters supporting the growth of the sector. I see a continued role for working through ESA, through bilaterals and national programs, in order for us to achieve that goal as a science technology superpower for the space domain. And training. We're definitely very keen and supporting the need to train the next generation for the space sector, be that at whatever level that is required. There's a strong role for universities and education in that. Just a couple more points. I was asked to comment on the role of an academic board for the space sector. So we have proposed a possible structure and the membership that could be debated, sort of recognizing key groups across the sort of academic forum, so also including UKRI and its Space Coordination Group and National Centre, so National Centre of Earth Observation, as we would like to have that close interaction with those parties that are not just doing academic research, but perhaps sort of guiding the direction of academic research. We would need to do all the functional stuff, such as establishing terms of reference for membership, remit, frequency of meetings, and so on. And then in terms of the role, so I think we've got a role to provide a coordinated view from universities, from UKRI and national centres on issues of strategic interest. I also see a need to do a SWOT analysis, so keeping an eye on where we're strong, where there are weaknesses and opportunities, and so forth. And also see that SPAN will continue to act as a lobbying voice for academia, but that voice will be federated, I guess, through the academic board. In terms of the importance of cohesion, space covers a broad range of disciplines and subjects and has fuzzy boundaries. There's a couple of examples that could expand on that, but practically in many sense, we're blurred boundaries, so it gets a bit challenging that way. There will be differing opinions and priorities, but in academia and government and industry, but the role of these bodies is to coordinate and provide a voice for that community. So the importance of cohesion is the ability to coordinate these views and provide clear guidance to government. So I was also asked to comment on how the partnership will ensure that academia is heard. So I think this can be managed through the structures, so ensuring that you have representations at all levels of future partnership. And on our side, in terms of the people we put forward, we need to ensure they have the ability and the capacity to represent their community. So the academic community is taking great strides to convene and connect diverse skills, capabilities, and facilities. And we see that there's a strong, clear role in National Space Strategy as academia is one of 3 constituent parts of the sector. And we'll continue to work with government and industry to achieve impactful ways of working together. I think that's my last slide. Thank you for your attention.
So we have a little bit of a problem because my name's Ruth and I'm clearly not Rob Hill.
But like my feet aren't used to being in heels after 2 years in slippers, we've missed something on our comms. So Rob is in Ireland expecting an MS Teams link, so he's unable to join us. However, Rob, I've been speaking to Rob Hill, to Craig Clark, and to John Worley, which is Ireland, Scotland and Wales in representation, and they have sent me some notes, so I've quickly noted those down, some of their key points. I'm going to go through those, but we are joined by Joanna Hart today, who also works with these guys, and in the room we've got Pamela Smith and Andrew Horner, who also work very closely with at least the Scottish Devolved Administration. So sorry about that hiccup. Our learning to work in these dual event spaces is just going to take some time to settle. So the DAs, the notes that I've been given, the DAs consist largely of very new enterprises, a very entrepreneurial endeavour, and bring to the space community a suite of disruptive ideas. Every devolved administration, and indeed every space cluster, which I'm sure Joanna will attest to, is very, very different. They're coming from different starting positions, they're coming from with particular strengths and capabilities, and they're highlighted, this has been highlighted by recent funding from the UK Space Agency. And I bear witness to that. Probably about 5 weeks ago, Nafisa of the Satellite Applications Catapult and Colin Baldwin of the Space Agency brought all the UK space clusters and the devolved administrations together, and I heard firsthand of that diversity and the strength of what's going on. And, you know, they wanted to acknowledge the funding from the UK Space Agency in particular in enabling that to happen. But, you know, whatever formal networks are being established, there is also an informal network, and this entrepreneurial, very dynamic behaviour in the regions, in the sort of devolved administrations or devolved areas, brings a different energy. It brings a degree of agility, and those relationships are structured, structured well, then this energy will facilitate that delivery. You know, and it talks again to what we keep hearing of the sort of diversity of space, the dynamic of space, and it sounds to me like in the up and down the land of the UK, there's a willing amount of energy to bring forward. So having that fresh input from the devolved administrations and their regional clusters is really important to drive that delivery. An establishment of a voice that goes beyond that of, don't shoot the messenger, beyond that of UKspace, but brings in those clusters, brings in those devolved administrations, is essential. So advisory groups at strategic levels must reflect those voices, which is difficult because you can't have 23 clusters sitting around a table with the minister, but having mechanisms to help bring that voice to the bear is really important. And then their final point is there is a need for greater transparency on programmes to enable a wider collective approach to bringing that to bear. So the notes are in my inbox. I haven't just made this up. I hope that was helpful. So we've probably gained a bit of time, and I'm now going to hand over to Joanna, who's going to talk a bit more about the regional clusters. Thanks, Joanna.
Thanks a lot. So hopefully with that extra bit of time means that everybody's not going to be rushing on to coffee. For those that don't know me, I'm Joanna Hart. I am from Harwell Space Cluster, just down the road near Oxford. There are obviously a whole range of clusters across the UK, and I'll try and sort of group some of the points representing them as well as Harwell. We've got about 11 clusters across the UK. As Ruth noted, they're all at different stages of maturity. They all come with slightly different flavours in terms of the way that they've structured, the way that they've grown up, the way that they've developed. And there's been a great sort of effort from lots of different parties to actually develop those clusters along the way. And I'd echo Ruth's point in terms of how do we use those clusters to help with this engagement piece, to make sure that all the views, all the best ideas are really coming through to be able to deliver on that national space strategy. Now, obviously, clusters are point number 5 on the list of points within the National Space Strategy, so having those world-class clusters is really important. But actually those clusters can also support all of the other 9 points. So we shouldn't think about it being a cluster in and of itself. It's about how we leverage those clusters to actually be able to deliver on the national space strategy. So when we're thinking about the governance, when we're thinking about the engagement piece, how do all of these things dock in? For clusters, I think there are 3 really important lenses that we need to consider. One is international, the second is national, and the third is levelling up. And I'll go through each of these in turn. They are in that order for a purpose. In terms of international, when we're looking externally, and lots of us were at Space Symposium last week, we are thinking about how do we attract opportunities, how do we attract investment, how do we attract customers, collaborators, how do we get them here to the UK to A, help us strengthen what we're doing, but also to help our companies benefit from these opportunities. So when we're thinking about that international lens, we need to make sure that the UK looks coherent, coordinated, words that are borrowed earlier from Jules. When we're also thinking about that international lens, we're competing against other countries. There are lots of other countries that are also out there trying to get those customers, those collaborators, those inward investors. And I spoke to a number of them over at Space Symposium last week. They're looking at Luxembourg, Germany, France, as well as the UK. So we need to make sure that when we're looking through that international lens, we are competing against other countries. So that coordinated, coherent approach is really important. You may have seen, for those who were in Space Symposium, the new DIT proposition for space. You don't need to have a magnifying glass to realise there's a lot of dots on this map. And this is designed for an international audience. We need to simplify this. We need a much clearer way when we're talking about international lens to present what we do in the UK. The wiring diagram that goes behind that is not important for an international audience. Obviously, as Harwell, I am keen to point out that Harwell Space Cluster does currently act as the gateway to the UK. I host 30 to 50 visits a year, including many international delegations. How do we continue to leverage that, but make sure that we're connecting all of those opportunities through to the capability across the UK? That nicely leads me on to my second lens, that national lens. The Catapult and UK Space Agency have done an amazing job over the last 8 years in terms of going into different regions, stimulating activity, trying to understand what capability, what expertise that's vaguely space-related could be in each of those different regions. And they've pulled that all together, and now we've got these 11 space clusters or devolved areas. That in turn can help to develop the supply chains, those national supply chains, so that we can connect those international opportunities to that national capability, but also connect national opportunities. When we want to deliver sovereign capability, how do we make sure we're getting the best capability into those contracts? Those clusters can be a really good source of providing those links. And it's also ways of us actually connecting up all those opportunities, that capability, that expertise, and looking in those regions for what other opportunities there might be in other sectors. So that national lens is about that connecting up piece, making sure that we're bringing the best capability from across the UK to any of the challenges that we've got. The third lens is levelling up. Clearly, this is hugely important politically at the moment. And clearly, increasing investment outside of the South East is important and something that we would all agree with. Now, but what we need to make sure is that we're not doing that at the expense of some of our other strong assets, because we need to make sure that we truly are world class in terms of our clusters, and we're not just artificially moving things around to try and help with the political scoring. And so that's why I've put this as the third lens, as in it's really important that we look at it, that we consider it, but should probably not be the driver if we want to be world class. The other thing that the clusters across the UK can really do is engage with non-space sectors. They know lots of other people in their regions. In many cases, those clusters have brought together those non-space sectors with the space capability in that region. So we can leverage them to create new opportunities in non-space sectors to really bring those opportunities, enable that engagement, enable people to talk the same language so that we can really get space embedded into more and more sectors. The other piece that we've talked quite a bit about and is referred to in the priorities is the regional skills. And it's absolutely imperative, if we're going to deliver capability across the whole of the UK, that we need the skills in place across the UK. And clusters have a real role in terms of bringing those skills, developing that capability, and providing those links. Obviously, the Space Skills Advisory Panel is very active in this already and is one that should continue to be used for that. So to summarise, I think when we're looking at clusters, we need to remember there are three lenses. Whenever we're discussing them, whenever we put them together, one is that international lens. Secondly, that national lens. How do we make sure we have that connectivity, that wiring diagram that goes on behind? Nobody really needs to see, we just need it to work. How do we fit that in? And then levelling up. How can we leverage all of those 11 clusters that we've got already to help drive the skills, to help drive that capability? And obviously within all of those clusters, most of them are already very well linked with academia, industry and public sector bodies. So again, how do we make sure that we're leveraging all of that? So I look forward to the discussion today to see how the National Space Partnership is going to link all of those different pieces. And I'd reiterate that all of the clusters across the UK are really keen to help deliver on this National Space Strategy and do it in the most effective way possible. They've got a lot of local knowledge, a lot of capability and expertise. So let's make sure that we're really using that so that we can deliver world-class clusters and really deliver on the ambition of the National Space Strategy. Thanks a lot.
Right, well, thank you for all our speakers kicking off our sessions today. I think we're now going to have a short break and we come back. When do we come back, Ruth? 11:30. See you shortly. Thanks very much.